What's up, everybody? You want to be a flight attendant? Please, That sounds so ugly. Hold on, let me redo this. So you're interested in becoming a flight attendant? So you're interested in becoming a flight attendant? Please watch this video to find out how.
Do you think about me?
What's up, everybody? It's your boy J-Rod. So today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you on how to become a flight attendant. So I've been actually getting this question asked a lot recently on my Instagram. A lot of people have been asking me recently about this career, like how do you get into it, or they know people who want to do it, and so they're just like very interested on the hiring process. How does it work? Did you have to go to school for it, etc.? So what I'm going to be doing in today's video is just giving you a rundown of pretty much all the steps it takes in order to become a flight attendant and all the general requirements. This is a very long process and it's very competitive, so I'm just going to kind of give you a brief overview, but in the future what I'm going to do is break down each step, because there are so many steps in order to become a flight attendant that a lot of people don't know about. And yeah, this video can end up being like 5 hours long, so I don't want to do that today. I'm just going to give you the rundown of pretty much everything you need to know in order to get started. And also hit that like button. All right, so general requirements. The only thing you need in order to become a flight attendant is be at least the age of 21. Some airlines will let you come in at 20 as long as you turn 21 before the end of your training or before your official first day. They'll let you do it, but like I said, you got to check specifically with that airline, and that's simply because flight attendants do serve alcohol, so that's why the age limit is 21 for most airlines. The next thing you need is a high school diploma, okay? So you don't have to actually go to school or college for it. I know some people that go to these flight attendant schools, which to be honest, it's not necessary because every airline is gonna train you specifically to that airline. So don't waste your time and money on going to like these flight attendant prep schools. It's kind of pointless, okay? If you do have a bachelor's and master's degree, it will actually help you in the application process. It'll give you a more competitive edge, but it's not a requirement. And also, if you speak a foreign language, that's something else that you can put on your resume that will give you a competitive edge. The next requirement you need is a passport. So if you don't have one of those, you need to start working on that right now, because that is a general requirement. Height and weight requirements. So the general rule of thumb for the height is usually on average 5 feet for the minimum. However, there are some flight attendants who are under 5 feet. I know people that are 4'11" that are flight attendants. And really the key is, as long as you're able to reach the overhead bins without shoes on, then you can be a flight attendant. So, and you can stand on your tippy toes during the reach test for people who are feeling like they might not be able to make the reach. But once again, I know people who are under 5 feet and they have a long reach and they're able to do it, so don't count yourself out. Now, in terms of the height limit or the height maximum, you don't really see too much of this, only for like regional flight attendants, okay? The regional cutoff is usually around 6 feet. Obviously, I'm way too tall to be a regional flight attendant, okay? I'm 6'4". In regional airlines, they typically fly on like those smaller planes, like those ERJs or CRJs, okay, where your head is touching the ceiling. Seriously, when I walk through those planes, my head touches the ceiling and I have to like hunch like this. So imagine having like platform shoes on top of that, okay? Like, it's just not gonna be comfortable trying to do that. So if you're over 6 feet, regional is probably not going to be your way to go. However, in mainline, you are perfectly fine, okay? You know, mainline flight attendants, you know, they fly on like those huge 777 Airbuses, and even like on a 737, for me as a 6'4" person, I'm able to walk through the cabin comfortably, and that's actually one of the smaller planes. So yeah, if you're somebody who's on the taller end, definitely look into being a mainline flight attendant, okay? It's just gonna be a lot more comfortable. All right, now in terms of weight requirements, there isn't an actual number that you have to weigh in order to be a flight attendant. Okay, this isn't the 90s or early 2000s where they made people stand on scales. Okay, they don't do that anymore. So pretty much you just have to be able to sit in the jump seat. And what the jump seat is, if you ever board an aircraft and you see the flight attendant sitting in those seats by the door, that is what a jump seat is, okay? So you just have to be able to fasten the seatbelt and buckle it. Now, one thing I will say is, if you are like on the heavier side, or you tend to carry a lot of your weight in the midsection, that is something you will need to take into consideration, because you do have to be able to fasten the seatbelt without a seatbelt extender. And usually the jump seats, they test you on like one of the smallest ones, and so you can't have any type of assistance or seatbelt extensions. But there are some people who go to the tryout, they don't fit the first time, and then they lose weight and come back and fit in the jump seat. So if this is something that you're really serious about, you know, I would say give it a shot, whether you feel like you're too short, whether you feel like you're too tall, you know, or if you're not gonna fit the jump seat, I would still just try out, because Nowadays, flight attendants come in all shapes and sizes, so please don't let that be something that discourages you or scares you away from this profession, because like I said, there are plus size flight attendants, there are short flight attendants, and there are tall flight attendants, okay? All right, and then the last two general requirements is to be willing to undergo background check and drug screening. And y'all, let me just tell y'all this up front, that the drug screening does not just stop at the application process or the hiring process. It's going to continue through your entire flight attendant career. So if you're somebody who partakes in those things, just letting you know that they do random drug and alcohol testing. So if that's something that you cannot give up, then this probably isn't going to be the career for you. You can drink alcohol, you just can't drink within a certain amount of time before your shift. And every airline is different, so they'll tell you all this in training about how much alcohol you can consume before your shift or whatever. But definitely drug tests, that is a big no-no in the aviation industry. Okay, refusal to take a drug test is automatic termination. Or if you fail a drug test, that's an automatic termination. So if this is something that you are really seriously considering and you do partake in that, just take that into consideration, that it does not just stop at the application process. Okay, and then the last thing is you just need to be willing and able to relocate. And this is something that they're always going to mention in training. They're going to throw this in your face over and over again. They're going to say, you signed that dotted line saying that you're willing and able to relocate. And willing and able to relocate doesn't mean that you have to move to your base. It just means that you're willing to relocate to your base if needed. Okay, so when you get into training, I'm not about to go into too much detail about this, but pretty much when you get the training, they'll have base options and you'll be able to put in your preference, or you might put your bid in for which base that you want to get, whether it's your first, second, or third pick. And sometimes they don't have any options, they just have one base open. So if they only have one city available, everybody in training is going to go to that city. So like I said, this is just something that flight attendants have to do. You do get into this career profession and they tell you that you got to move to San Francisco. Well, you're going to be relocating to San Francisco, okay? So just take that into mind. You can commute, however, commuting is not recommended, especially as a new hire. At least you want to wait until you get a line or become a line holder before you start doing that and you're off probation. But yes, if you answer yes to all these general requirements, then you can go ahead and begin the application process. All right, so we covered the general requirements. Now we're going to talk about how to actually apply, okay? So before I break this down, let me just explain that this is a rather long process. Okay, so there are a lot of steps in order to get to the next step. And you have to do each step perfectly, because if not, then you have to restart this entire hiring process completely over again. And usually the wait period is about 6 months. I know some airlines that is even longer, where they will only let you apply like once a year. So just please, when you are going through this process, take it very seriously and try your very best, so that way you have your best chances of success. But this is a very competitive industry, and thousands upon thousands of people apply for these spots. So only a small percentage make it. Like some airlines, it's like less than 1% of applicants out of like 100,000 applications get these jobs. So I really want you to understand that like you really need to please bring your A game when you are going through this application process. Okay, so phase one, the first thing you need to do is attend a tryout. So how do you try out for an airline? Go on the airline's website. If you go down to the bottom to their careers page, usually they have a section where they have jobs. And so it might say something like in-flight jobs, or they might have a search bar where you can type in flight attendant jobs, but that's where you submit the initial application. So it's just going to ask you, your general application questions, and then you're going to submit your resume. Make sure that you polish your resume to stand out and really fit that airline's core values. So look up the airline that you're trying to apply for, and when you go into their mission statement and look at their core values, make sure that you put keywords on your resume that's going to stand out. Because here's a little trick about these resumes. Humans don't actually look at the resume first. It's actually the computer. It's like all this AI stuff. So they're going to be scanning for keywords. So if you are applying for a specific company, look at their core values, look at their mission statement, and make sure you include that on your resume. Because if not, you do have the possibility of getting rejected on the first round, and that does happen to people. So thousands of people get cut before they even get into the assessment. So just make sure that your resume is polished. And once again, I'll make a specific video on like what to put on your resume and how to make it stand out, so that way you don't get rejected in the first round. All right, so once your resume clears through, somebody from talent acquisition, they'll probably take a look at it, and then they're going to send you an assessment. Now, in this wait period between when your resume clears and then when talent acquisition is going to send you an assessment, it could take anywhere from a little as a couple of hours to a few weeks. So it really just depends on the timing and how fast they're processing things. But just keep in the back of your mind that it is thousands of people that are trying out. So sometimes it can be a little bit of a wait time, all right? But once you get your assessment, you're gonna do the personality test. And really, this is just to see, do you have the qualities, characteristics, and traits that they're looking for in terms of being a flight attendant for that specific company. They also have skills assessments where they test like your knowledge. Okay, so some might be math questions, your ability to read charts, memory skills, or just situational events, comprehension. You know, like how would you respond to this customer if you were the flight attendant? They'll have like little scenarios like that. And just remember, when you're doing these assessments, it's really important to understand the role of a flight attendant, and when you answer these questions as a flight attendant would do these things. So I know it says answer honestly and accurately, but remember at the end of the day, you're applying for a job and it's very competitive. So just make sure when you're doing these assessments, you're really trying your best on this. Some airlines will only have the personality, and then I've seen some where they'll combine the personality and skills assessment all into one. And so it just really depends on the airline that you're applying for. All right, so if you make it past the assessment, you're in good hands because now you're at the video interview. This is why I tell people like it starts to get real, because this is the airline's first impression of you visually. They actually get to see you. So first impressions are everything. So this is kind of a big deal. So there are two different types of video interviews you'll be faced with. One is called an on-demand video interview, and then the other is a live video interview. So the on-demand video interview is like a self-submit type of interview where they'll have a prompt on the screen and then you'll answer the questions, and it's on a timer. So you have about a certain amount of minutes to answer your question and submit it. And then you have live video interviews where you actually talk to a flight attendant, and it's more like a Skype or a Zoom call, okay? So depending on the airline, some will require you to do 2 video interviews, one on-demand video interview, and then 1 live video interview, or only just 1 on-demand video interview. It just really depends. Me personally, I don't like the on-demand video interviews where you submit the answers. It just feels kind of awkward just talking to a screen, and live video interviews to me just flow a little bit more naturally, and you have a point of reference to know how well you're doing versus you just talking to a camera by yourself. And even me as a YouTuber, you would think like I actually would be okay with that, but really I don't. I hate just doing anything where I don't have an actual human being right there. So yes, you may be asked to do 1 or 2 video interviews. The airline that gave me my first job, I had to do 2 video interviews. All right, the next phase. If you made it to this point, you need to count yourself extremely blessed and lucky, because you have outbeat thousands of people, and now you're at the face-to-face final in-person interview, okay? So this is a huge deal because now they actually get to see you in person, and all these things that you've been doing online, now it has to translate into a real live setting or situation, okay? So the face-to-face finals are a big deal. They fly out about the top 50 candidates to headquarters, and then you go and do this whole long process, and usually the interview lasts anywhere between 4 to 8 hours. So it just, once again, it depends on the airline and what they're doing. I know the airline that gave me my first contingent job offer, that interview was like 5 hours, but pretty much it's an all-day event, and you know, they're going to be assessing you on everything: the way you talk, the way you walk, the way you speak, just every single thing possible to see like what type of person they're going to be hiring. And so really during this time, you really need to stand out and bring your best foot forward, because once again, they only select a small amount of people, okay? Sometimes out of the 50 people, they can only select like 5 or 4. Once again, when you do go out to the face-to-face interview, they will fly you out there. They'll give you a voucher for the flight code, so you enter in all that information, and then you'll either fly in the day before or the day of. And I definitely recommend if you can fly in the day before, just to get there, so that way you're not going to be late and you feel confident. But for some people, the timing doesn't work out and they have to fly in the day of. So if you can get in the day before, that'd be awesome. But yeah, I'm not really allowed to go into detail as to what happens at the final interview, but let me just say this: it's more than just the interview. You're going to be doing a lot more things, and then they'll do cuts, and then the last people standing, they end up getting the job. So it's a very intense day, but it's very fun and exciting, especially if you do get that CJO, which is considered a contingent job offer, which I'm going to talk about in this next phase. So pretty much what a CJO or a contingent job offer is stating that upon completion of flight attendant training, you will receive the job. So yes, that is the next phase. You have to go to training. So you'll go do like the drug test, background check, do all that. And then they'll usually give you sometimes a couple of weeks, sometimes a couple of months. It really just depends. I think for me, I only had like a couple of weeks to quit all my jobs and like, you know, get everything rearranged and set up. And that's another thing for people who are trying to get into this career. Please have your money saved up, because flight attendant, to get started, it can be expensive, especially like having to relocate and move and do all these things. And then after training, you know, you got to move out to base. So I really recommend, like, if you're somebody who's applying to become a flight attendant, go ahead and start saving your money and make sure you stack it pretty well, because training is not paid, okay? So now we're gonna get into flight attendant training. So usually flight attendant training is about 2 months. For regional airlines or low-cost carriers, it's about like a month. But for most mainline airlines, general, it's about like 2 months. So if you do have bills, I recommend you go ahead and pay them 2 months in advance, because you're going to be going 2 months with no income. So that can be a very stressful situation for some people. You do get a little something, or what I would call like lunch money, which is for food, but it's really not a lot of money. So you're definitely not going to be paying bills with that. But so once again, before going into training, please make sure that you have your financial situation in order. All right, so training. Congratulations, you are now like at the final step right before becoming a flight attendant. So I'm just gonna be straight up. Training is probably gonna be one of the most stressful, most intense, difficult things you have ever gone through in your entire life. Okay, I don't even want to like sugarcoat it and make it seem like it's not, because it really is stressful, but it is possible, and thousands of people have done it before you. Thousands of people are going to do it after you. So don't let this like be something that, you know, scares you off. But this is going to be probably the hardest part of this entire process, and it is very grueling. The classes are very long, you know, 12-hour classes, 6 days a week. You're going to be living in a hotel, and you're going to be having tests almost every single week, sometimes daily tests every single day, and you have to pass them with nothing less than a certain score. You're going to be having lots of exams, lots of drills. Okay, pretty much in training, you need to be 100% focused, because one little mistake can make you get sent home, and they're just very strict, okay, with the rules in training. So guys, when you get into training, take it very seriously, because it is very intense. And once again, it's not like your traditional academic setting where you can make a B and that's okay. Like pretty much anything less than an A is not acceptable. So you really need to keep your average all the way up. And also every exam, you need to pass it with a minimum score. And you also need to pass every drill. Drills are pass or fails. And just make sure when you're doing the drills, you stay extremely focused. Like one little mistake can cost your spot, and you have to start this whole process completely over from the very beginning. You'll have to wait 6 months. Okay, so something simple as like, you know, not speaking loud enough, or not looking out the window long enough, or not being in compliance with your uniform. You fall asleep in class. Little things like that can get you written up and sent home. So please, when you go through training, take it all the way serious. So if you get through, you know, your 2 months at training, then you'll graduate, you'll get your wings, and then from there, you'll have about like a week before you go out to your base, and then you'll be on the line. Once you're on the line, you have about 6 months of probation. So that means that you can't make any mistakes. But when you're on probation, you pretty much get like 2 strikes, 3 strikes, you're out. So you can't have any missed trips, no missed calls from crew scheduling. Like you really just need to be a polished, perfect flight attendant for those 6 months. And once you get past that, then you'll be out of the probationary phase, and you know, things will start being a little bit smoother sailing. But that is in essence the entire process from start to finish on how to become a flight attendant. Like I told y'all, the hardest part of the whole thing is just being patient, because it is very long. Overall, collectively, I would say from the time you apply to the time you like actually get on the line, it's probably gonna be like 6 months. At least I know in my situation, when I put in my initial application, it was like in December, and then I didn't get my CJO until like March, which was like almost 4 months later, and then plus the 2 months. Okay, so that's about like 6 months in total of this whole thing from start to finish. So once again, this is something that you really want to get into. I highly recommend you to go for it. I think flight attendant is like one of the coolest careers out there, especially for people who love to travel. But there is a lot of steps that go into it, and it is really competitive. But don't give up. If you're somebody who has not made it through the initial application, or you can't get that CJO, please do not give up. I think it took me about 6 tries before I was able to get my first flight attendant job. So I just want to use that as inspiration out there for people that who are trying to go through this process. Like, it is very common for people to do it over and over again until they get it. So please do not give up on that. But yeah, guys, if you have any questions, you know where to hit me up. And once again, in the future, I'm going to do a breakdown of each step, so that way I kind of give you more detail as to what to expect when going through this interviewing process. All right, guys, I'll catch y'all later. Peace.